All right, I'm unmuted, I think. Here we go. Welcome. We got a lot of March Madness stuff today. There are yesterday's games were unbelievable, at least any game that wasn't involving UConn. Today, hopefully more of the same. Thank you for joining me today just before these games get going or as these games have already gotten underway. We're going to kind of run through some of the numbers, the bets I have, the bets I lost yesterday. Some of those, let me tell you, gleefully. I had no problem gladly losing a bunch of those bets yesterday because it was an emotional hedge. I absolutely hate Arizona, and every time I can, I bet Arizona just to make sure. Hey, you know what? If I'm going to be in pain seeing the rival team win, at least let me make a little money. So we'll run through those things today. We'll start with yesterday, and I've got this up. I think it's a tough conversation, I think, for U of A fans to have because of the fact that they are a powerhouse on the West Coast. The unfortunate thing for U of A, and let me make this a little bit larger. Oh Christ, what's the zoom button on? Oh my God. All right, whatever. This should work. At least for U of A fans, you go into this thinking, okay, this is our year. And they've been saying this for years and years and years. They obviously were the Sean Miller teams. That was one set of problems. And now it's Tommy Lloyd. And the crazy thing is, I don't think I don't think Sean Miller loses yesterday's game to Clemson. Like Arizona looked ill prepared. They looked out coached. And the fact that they just would dribble down and just chuck threes because they couldn't figure out how to beat that zone that Clemson threw at them was like, it's always telling of a bad coach. There's a few things that I'll tell you right now that are indicative of bad coaches. Okay. One, if they just have no ability to kind of beat a zone defense, shout out to Bill Simmons, who I'm not necessarily a fan of anymore, but I remember him once saying like this particular coach, I think it was Dunleavy, reacted to having a zone defense like someone throwing acid in his face. And so I think that you look at what Tommy Lloyd did yesterday and his inability to beat a zone. It was like, okay, well, that seems a little telling. And then on the worst play was there was a bad foul call or going right into immediate timeout. And instead of getting right into the huddle and telling his guys how Clemson were going to handle the inbound, because that as coach, there's only so many things you can like prep for X's and O's wise, but the inbounds plays, either drawing them up or countering them on defense. That's how you know a good coach. Okay. So instead of getting his team prepped for that, he spends it yelling at the referee, gets into the huddle late. His guys get out of the huddle, immediately get backdoor cut, easy layup for Clemson. So like, as an ASU fan, I enjoyed seeing this every year they do this. It was kind of a poor showing from Clemson fans. I was at the game. Shout out to Betway for sending me to the game. It was kind of a poor showing from Arizona fans. I really was like, this is going to be like a home game for them. There's so many Wildcats in LA and on the West Coast in general. But talking to the guys in the stands, they were all like, yeah, a lot of our friends didn't come because they were saving their money for the Final Four. Like Wildcat fans saw the Phoenix Final Four, circled that, and we're like, this is the year. This is the year we finally get out of our own way and win this thing. And again, you look at this, they've lost, every time they've lost in the tournament for the last 6 years, it's been someone who's at minimum 4 spots lower than them. Now, granted, some of these are teams that maybe were better than their ranking, but losing to Buffalo, losing to Houston, losing to Princeton in the first round, and then losing to Clemson. And like Clemson had that game basically wire to wire. Like, I went with my fiance and she was like, Arizona doesn't really deserve this game if they win it. And I agree. I mean, I think that a lot of bettors looked at that game and probably saw Arizona as a clear-cut favorite. I did. I mean, I wasn't just like an emotional edge. It seemed like a good bet. So I took Arizona first half. I live bet Arizona second half. I had Arizona involved in a teaser, and obviously all of those did not work out. So It is what it is. You emotionally hedge sometimes. We can pull this up. So I just want to look at the Purdue Gonzaga game specifically. Uh, Hold on, let me pull this up for the presentation. I got you. 1 second. Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's leave. No, go ahead. Go ahead to the Betway odds. Thank you. So looking at these, I think I was looking at the tickets earlier and how many more bets are in on what is it on Gonz? Yeah, a lot more money on Gonzaga than on Purdue, and I think that Dan Hurley made the joke yesterday that his team can't win close games; they just have to steamroll everybody. It kind of feels like that might be the case for Purdue. Like, I think if this gets into a rock fight, it's bad news for Purdue. My one thing for like Gonzaga and why I think Gonzaga could win this game is Mark Few is a good coach and he can scheme up a somewhat one-dimensional big man like Zach Edey. Like, Zach Edey does a relatively good job of passing out of the post when you bring a double to him, but he's not like an elite post presence. And I think that someone like Mark Few is smart enough to know how to handle and scheme around someone like that. That being said, I mean, it's 4.5, and this is one of those lines where you're like, as a basketball fan, I just keep staring at it, and I really don't know quite which way to go on it. I think that I put all of these together in a one giant teaser, and I think Purdue wins, or sorry, I teased Gonzaga down to 10.5. So I do think Purdue wins. I just like the extra insurance of getting Gonzaga on like a double-digit loss. Like, I'm sure if you went and looked, Mark Few has probably lost games in the tournament by double digits. I'm okay with that. I'm okay if that happens again. That sucks. Okay, so here are here are the adjusted spreads that we could have for this game. So what, Gonzaga at 8.5 plus 8.5 minus 200. That's not bad. And then you could go minus 8.5 plus 50. Interesting. Yeah, I think that teasing it would be the best way if you're looking for a higher number to put all this together. I've been doing teasers for most of the tournament. I would say I've hit it like 60%, which is obviously not a great science. I am aware. But it is it's been working. At least it's been working better than it has previous years in the tournament. The other, we were talking a bit earlier about Arizona and being on Fraud Watch, and are we sure Tommy Lloyd is the guy? The other one is Rick Barnes. If we could pull up the Tennessee line just going into that game. I love Rick Barnes because every year it is so funny to me that this man, who seemingly is a very good college coach, puts together good teams, and every year it's something. And it seemingly is always his fault for not having the team ready, or they get distracted or whatever it is. But this is someone who failed to go, I believe, beyond the second round with Kevin Durant on his team. He had LaMarcus Aldridge and didn't do anything with it. He's obviously had several good Tennessee teams. He's had good Texas teams beyond LaMarcus Aldridge and Kevin Durant, and has not won anything. And so, like, every year we do like, I don't know how many people watching this do like an auction draft for March Madness, but it is, if you don't do it with your friends. It's electric. You auction off the entire field, and every year we get to Tennessee, and we have one friend in particular that buys them every time. And we're always like, Dave, are you going to do it? Are you going to ride with Rick Barnes again? And every year he does it. And every year he curses up a storm. What else do we have as far as were there any good same game parlay, anything in the same game parlay category that we liked? Okay, so just throwing those three together. Okay. Interesting. I love Rick Barnes. I think he's a good coach. I think looking at this game, here, I'm going to share this one. Give me 1 sec. Okay. looking at this game, here you go. So here's where you could see some of the, stuff. They obviously rate this as a 1-star bet if you are going to take Tennessee, just because there's not much love as far as the way that they've run it in their model and all of that. Looking at the percentage of bets, a lot of people fading, or a lot of people are, sorry, a lot of the sharps obviously fading Creighton here. Again, it seems like every year we forget that Rick Barnes is a bad coach. And I think McDermott, historically, phenomenal coach. Like, this is something that we know about Greg McDermott. Kind of a crazy person, but that's neither here nor there. But that he is a really good coach. And that in these kind of matchups, when you see him going against a guy like Rick Barnes, I'm not so sure that he's the guy you want to be riding with in Rick Barnes. I think that you get into this game, you get into deep water. Like you saw it in that Arizona game last night. Like, okay, Tommy Lloyd seems to be a very good recruiter, doesn't seem to be a very good coach. And just down the stretch, there are so many mistakes and so many crucial possessions that a good coach has his team, where they need to be. If this game is close, which by all accounts of it being, spread of less than 5, it'll be a 1, if not 1.5 possession game coming down the wire. You're going to look me in the eyes and be like, oh no, I trust Rick Barnes here. Like that's the guy I want handling this game. What do we have? Do we have let me just pull this up. Is there a live, do we have a live line on the Marquette North Carolina State game? If we could throw that up. I think that I like Shaka Smart a lot. Again, I think that coming down to these games, it's like great coaches really like show off how great of coaches they are. I think that 8 points is nothing for Shaka Smart to come back from. I think that, oh yeah, dude, you look at it. Like, the book knows. I mean, Marquette is still they're down 8. They're still minus 140 in this game. Okay, now we're down to minus 130. I think that I would probably take, because obviously the minus 1.5, I would say if you're watching this game and believe in Marquette at all, take that minus 1.5 and run with it. I mean, you're getting a basically even odds that they're going to come back and win this game. I also think that watching some of the NC State games down the stretch, they play well, but a lot of those games looked, up for grabs. I don't really feel that comfortable with NC State down the stretch, where it's like, dude, Marquette had some stinker minutes in this tournament, but like, that's a team that will grind out buckets if they have to and stay in games and know that if they're not down by, 15, they're going to come back if they can, or have a shot at coming back at least. As far as betting over-unders in this tournament, let me tell you something, brother. This is not something I know how to do or understand how to do it, because every one of these games, I would have been like, oh, yeah, this looks like it's going to be a slow game. It goes the other way. And like, if we could move over to Duke versus Houston, that brings me to this game. Okay, it's all pace. One of the things we talked about, and I'm going to pull this up. This was one of the like most fun theories that I had seen floating around. I'm going to just open this in a new tab, and then I'll share this over. Here, let me share this, Andrew, before we get going into the Duke game. 8%. Screen. Okay. Make sure that moved over. Okay. So going into the tournament, this was one of my favorite things. I obviously made a video about this. If you saw it, great. If you didn't, this is what it is. It's basically mapping teams' pace, how quickly are they scoring buckets against net rating adjusted for how good of an opponent they're playing. So where you hope to be and where we've seen a lot of winners come from in the tournament historically is this upper middle quadrant. Okay. So like Houston, a team that is very, very good against very good teams, loves to play slow. Then you've got UConn kind of next to them, and then Iowa State, Purdue, Auburn, Tennessee, Illinois is in there, Gonzaga's in there, Duke's in there, Creighton's in there. Yeah, obviously it can't be 100%. Like I think BYU, or is it BYU or Yale? That's underneath the Tennessee logo. Auburn obviously choked right out of the gate. Baylor didn't do well. But it is to say, like, there is some method to this madness in that, like, San Diego State, like, made it far. Obviously got absolutely starched last night by UConn. But, like, there is a method to some of this that good teams can fit into this box, basically meaning teams that are able to play really, really efficiently against good opponents, but that are controlled in that, like, your outliers pace wise of St. Mary's, or going the other way, Arizona, Western Kentucky, New Mexico State. They have issues if the game slows way down, or they play an opponent that has an ability to slow the game down. It's, as someone who has a lot of shares in Houston to win it all this year, it's scary, like, that we saw Houston almost blow a game that they really had no business blowing, because, like, the pace got the pace got messed up for them, and it became very, very difficult. So, like, as we flip over to the Houston Duke game, Andrew, if you want to pull that up, perfect. As we go to this game, if I didn't have all the Houston shares that I have, I would be betting Duke at this point. I think that they're a really well coached team. They understand how important pace is. They understand how, getting out and running is going to be really important to beat this Houston team. And you also saw that, like, if you get Houston into foul trouble, it's a whole other game. I mean, like, that unfortunately was, like, there were a lot of bad calls, I thought, down the stretch. Obviously, I'm biased because I wanted Houston winning that game. But, like, their bench is not crazy deep. If you get their good players into foul trouble, Houston's just in trouble. And so, yeah, I mean, I would bet Duke tonight. I don't feel particularly good about having Houston at this point, but I think if Houston can get out of here, who do they have? What is the Andrew, do you mind flipping over to the actual full bracket? Yeah, Houston gets out of here. Where is it? We're looking at Houston, probably Marquette. I mean, I think Marquette's going to win this game. So Houston, Marquette. If I'm Houston, I'm not afraid of Marquette. And in the trapezoid of excellence, I don't know exactly where Marquette fell. I think they're like middle. So again, I think that as a Houston bettor, I'm happy I've had them. I'm happy I've had these shares. I wish I could sell at this point. Like, I love this Houston team, but man, that last game was so scary. And they really made it such an absolute sweated out type game that by the end of it, I was like, oh, this is not spell anything good. Very rarely do you see a team like blow the leads that they had in that game, hold off and win, and then continue to win another 2-3 games in the tournament. So as someone with some Houston shares, don't feel great about that. If I were betting tonight, I would like to take Duke. I would maybe try and pair up Duke with what would it be? Duke. Give me Duke, Gonzaga, and Creighton, and tease those together. That's what I would probably do. This is not betting advice, though. These are just hypotheticals. Yeah, I mean, again, like, does anyone? I don't think there's anyone in here that, like, particularly likes Zach Edey's game. I think he's I'm sure he's a really good dude, and I'm sure there are people that really like him as a person. But, like, I just find it hard to believe that Mark Few is someone who's been coaching as long as he has that's going to get fleeced by a semi one-dimensional big man. Um, not, I just don't see it happening at this point in his career. I think Gonzaga has gone much further than a lot of people expected them to. I think that it's, again, a testament to him being a great coach. And I think that a lot of people probably shorted this Purdue team, remembering how bad things went in previous years for them. I don't think, like, if you were betting just off of like player totals, I would say take Edey's rebound total over, but take his point total under going into this game. That's all kind of I've got as far as that one goes. I think we can go over to that game now. I think that one's about to tip. I really had hoped there was like a 1st to 15 that we could do for this, so that people could like actively watch me lose my mind as that 1st to 15 pursuit happened. We don't, and like I said in the other game, it's, Marquette is slowly staying in this game. I'm not even going to say they're coming back, but they're still in it. And as an ASU guy, let me tell you, devastating that NC State's best player is an ex-ASU guy. Tough year to be a Sun Devil. I mean, you see Jaden Daniel, ex-ASU guy, win a Heisman. You've got one of the better players in the tournament on NC State. Your crosstown rival had a shot at winning everything and didn't. All right, what do we have here? Sorry, let me go back to this. All right, yeah, we should be tipping off here in the Gonzaga Purdue game in a sec. Here, I'm going to pull up these right now and just take a look if there's any fonts. Nope, same game, probably market close. Okay. Let's see here. We can finish off with some of the Tennessee and Creighton stuff as this comes, as we wait for Purdue Gonzaga to get underway. You know what? Actually, just because I don't think we're not going to be on, obviously, until the next, until probably the finals. If we can just jump ahead, Andrew, do you mind pulling up the Clemson Alabama game? It's fun that these two teams made it. Can I just say, as someone who like lives for the content, not a good content game. Okay. Nate Oates, I don't have a lot of kind things to say about Nate Oates. So for that, I'm just going to not have a lot of things to say. But like we're right now deprived of a situation where allegedly Caleb Love, the best player at Arizona, was dating someone. They broke up. A part of that allegedly had reason as to why he got into the transfer portal and left North Carolina to go to Arizona. The person he was dating is now dating his former teammate and his fellow starter. That matchup of Caleb Love going back against North Carolina, just forget the gossip and the rumors. Just the fact of getting Caleb Love back against his old school, that would have been so much more fun than this matchup. Again, I'm happy for Clemson. I'm happy for Alabama. No one is that thrilled for this game. If this was a football game, we're all stoked. We're all stoked on that. But no one's that excited to watch Clemson. I mean, the Clemson team is really fun because it's just like there are so many guys on that Clemson team that if you were picking guys to play like a YMCA, you'd be like, you would pass them and probably just say, oh, that guy can't be that good. That Clemson team has so many guys like that on it that are awesome. The Alabama team they're great. And it kills me because I think Nate Oates is such a strange dude. And I can't believe how good of a coach he has been. I can't believe how great of a program he's built at Alabama. I mean, when they had Brandon Miller, obviously, like you have, arguably the best player in the country. Like, yeah, you should do what you did. But you get you get to another Elite Eight. Like, I'm trying to remember where Alabama's journey ended last year. Was it the Final Four? But the point is, Nate Oates is a good coach. This Clemson matchup, I don't know how you would bet against Alabama. I think if you're looking at what the two teams did yesterday, Clemson taking down Arizona and how Alabama beat North Carolina, I think that it was so much more impressive what Alabama did, because that North Carolina team is way more well assembled and way more fundamentally sound and way more well coached than Arizona. Like, look at Ballo versus Baycott. You give that nod to North Carolina. You look at the backcourts, you give that nod to North Carolina. I think you look at the bench and the overall strategy, you go North Carolina. So I think that what Alabama did and going just straight shot for shot against North Carolina and not fading, not getting scared of the moment. I think that Sears is unbelievable. I don't see a way that Clemson wins this game. And I think the line is kind of crazy that it's as close as it is. I think it should be like Alabama -5, -4.5 at this point, but it's there. So that's sort of where I ended up with that one. Again, point totals with college basketball and specifically in the tournament are so hard to predict. Those are usually like stayaways for me. We do have the Purdue game now finally underway. Is Purdue losing? That would be great. Okay, here we go. So it's all right. Close game. Again, we're not going to really have much read on this until, I mean, if Purdue starts, like, I just don't see Purdue. I don't see Purdue running away with this game. Like, I just don't know how they would do that. I think they're well coached, well designed, well built team, but I just don't see a world where Purdue goes and, blows the doors off Gonzaga in the first half and this is over. Because Gonzaga is just such a well built team every year. I mean, if this was the Final Four, if this was even the Elite Eight, I'd be like, yeah, time to start shorting Gonzaga again because Mark Few can't get the big one done. But it's not. So we'll see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to hit. I think we're pretty good on those games. Oh, let's cover the UConn line real quick just before we get out of here. If the line's 8.5, UConn, Illinois. I think that this is I want to say it's stay away. I don't know if that's the right way to say that. I just think that UConn, frankly, is going to beat the hell out of Illinois. It doesn't matter how good Illinois has been. It doesn't matter how Illinois has like really good guards and plays really sound. Like, this UConn team is a absolute machine, and they just are tearing people apart. I thought I thought UConn's game, this last game was going to be close against San Diego State. I didn't think San Diego State would win, but I thought it'd be 7 points, 8 points, like UConn would maybe have to sweat it out. And it was a 30-point loss. UConn's a machine. I don't think I would just go ahead and pencil UConn all the way into the national championship at this point. I think if Alabama wins, maybe that's a more intriguing game. But again, I don't see Nate Oates out coaching Dan Hurley. And just overall, that UConn team is just not going to lose. I just don't see how they lose. I think that the best shot at tripping up UConn between now and the final would be Purdue making it there. I think that UConn would smoke Houston at this point. I think that UConn would smoke Duke, NC State. I don't think that I don't see Marquette making it to Final Four. So Purdue, I think if you hate UConn, your last hope is Purdue getting in there. So I think UConn wins again by double digits. There's no reason to I keep telling myself surely this is where it stops, and it's not. They won by 30 again. It's not going to stop. UConn is a absolute juggernaut. Like they've won their last few games by so many goddamn points. It's just not going to stop until they play in the final. I mean, even then, I think that it could be ugly. This UConn team's a machine. But we can, I think, wrap there. We'll head out there. I appreciate everyone tuning in. We will be back, I think, for the finals. Probably do like a preview show going into the finals, like right before tip. Have a bunch of bets go in there. I appreciate everyone tapping in on a Friday night, and enjoy the games, enjoy the weekend, and best of luck to your brackets. I'll see everybody on, what would it be, Monday for the final in 2 weeks or a week from Monday. Have a good night.